Good morning to all of you joining from Europe. Good afternoon to all of you that are connecting from China. And welcome to our event today taking part in trade fairs in China. I'm David Orlandi, your partnership manager for EU SME Centre, and I will be briefly introducing today's activity before leaving the floor to the main speakers of today. We've decided to host this webinar to organize this activity in order to present, on the one hand, the relevance of the trade fairs in China as a fundamental instrument for European small and medium enterprises to meet potential Chinese business partners, to get in touch with potential Chinese partners. But we also would like to take the chance of this event to clarify that without specific strategy, without preparation, trade fairs will not be as effective as they could be and might also prove problematic for European entities. To this end, EU SME Centre, in collaboration with the China SME Help Desk, have created a report on trade fairs, which I invite you all to assess, analyze, and read. And we also have organized this webinar in order to provide the main takeaway points for the enterprises to focus on. To this end, today we're going to have two main presentations from Mr. Alessio Pettino from the SME Centre, who will be presenting the key takeaways of the report, the good practices that EU exhibitors should adopt before and after the participation to the trade fair, with the overall aim of making sure that the participation to the trade fair can be as fruitful as possible. The second presentation we're going to have is going to be from Ms. Lisa Lu from the China PR desk. And here we will focus on the relevance of IP protection when attending trade fairs, assessing the common issues that the SMEs could face during trade fairs, as well as sharing the best practices of IP protection before, during, and after the trade fair. The presentations will be 20 minutes approximately. At the end of the presentations, we're going to have a Q&A session. So please feel free to write down your questions in the appropriate section under the Zoom platform. I would invite you all to include the name of your company if you're going to write a question, so that it's easier for us to understand who is posing the question. We will make sure to try and reply to all of the questions that we receive. If we don't have the time to do so, we will make sure to have the chance to follow up with you after the event. I would like to briefly present also our speaker before moving on with a short presentation of the SME Centre. Mr. Alessio Pettino has been working for more than 8 years on a EU-funded project in China. He has a deep understanding of the Chinese market and of the issues that European small and medium enterprises can face when accessing this market. He has been working with the SME Centre ever since October 2022, and he has worked on most of the latest reports, guidelines, and he also provides technical assistance to European small and medium enterprises to our project. Lisa Lu, on the other hand, is the IP business advisor at China IP and SME Help Desk. She advises European small and medium enterprises, of course, on intellectual property right matters. She has been working on as a trademark attorney for Ferrate Intellectual Property and Chancellor Partners, and she mainly focuses on trademark prosecution, trademark enforcement, and copyright protection. Without further ado, I would like to move on to a very short presentation of EU SME Centre, the project that one of the two main projects that are being represented here today. This initiative has been funded by the European Commission ever since 2010, and its overall goal is that of providing free of charge services to European small and medium enterprises that would like to access the Chinese market. Overall, in order to support EU SMEs that want to access China, 5 main services have been developed. The first 3 are directly accessible to EU SME Centre website. The first one is the self-diagnosis tool. Here, the enterprise can directly take a test in which potential knowledge gaps will be highlighted. So, for example, if there are any major points that the enterprise should be aware of, but through the quiz it emerges that she isn't, It isn't. The website will redirect the company to the knowledge component, highlighting some key reading components that could be helpful in order to bridge these knowledge gaps. In this knowledge component, we have all the market reports, guidelines, case studies that have been published by EU SME Centre in the past 14 years. So it's a very relevant database for enterprises that would like to learn more in China, on China in general, but also on specific sectors or specific issues or specific regulations and so on and so forth. So it's a very relevant component of our services. Of course, the enterprise might not find all of the answers for its questions answered through the knowledge component. So there's also the chance to directly reach out to our experts through the Ask the Expert function. Here, the enterprise can directly through our website pose their relevant issues, try and understand what is the answer to the problems they might be facing. Our experts will answer all of these services. I would like to reiterate are free of charge. The fourth component is the training one. EU SME Centre provides trainings either online or in person, focusing on all the key topics for what concerns EU-China trade for European small and medium enterprises. So we can range from very general introductions to the Chinese market up until very specific and in-depth assessment of sector-specific issues that enterprises might face. The last component is the advocacy component. Here we have, of course, a component that's mainly tailored to those enterprises that are already in the Chinese market. But if you have any issues, if you face any problems, any activities that are becoming difficult for you to carry out in China, and you perceive that there's anything unfair about the current situation, please make sure to bring it up to us. We'll make sure to create a coherent voice for the European small and medium enterprises problems and try to bring it up at the governmental level in China. This would be it for a very short summary of this activity today about EU SME Centre activities. Do not hesitate to reach out to us either to the website or through email. I would like to end here my introduction and leave the floor to Ms. Jennifer Zhao. Thank you very much for your participation today.
Good morning or good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for giving me the chance to show you a brief picture about our services. Same as the EU SME Centre, this China IPR Help Desk is a European Union Fund project. It's designed to help European Union small and medium-sized enterprises about their IP issue in mainland China, Hong Kong, Macau, and Taiwan. The help desk offer a very wide range of services. The inquiry helpline is one of the major services for EU SME to ask us any IP-related question. And our IP business advisor will reply you with 3 working days. If an SME would like to talk to the IP business advisor, it's also fine, then please contact via the email address. You can book free one-on-one online consultation with the business advisor to discuss your case, or even ask some common question like how can I protect my IP when I work with a China partner, etc. Besides the helpline, we also work with some embassies and also the business association to organize on-site and online workshop, webinar training. All the schedule you can find on the website. The topic is diversity, might be the very basic IP training or some specific topics, just like today. If you visit our website, you will find really a wide range of resources on IP. For example, IP cost tools can show you the breakdown of each basic IP about the registration fees or annuity fees, etc. And also some self-learning materials like case studies, infographic, or some guides. Here is just an example to show you the guides we developed by ourselves and with the partner. You visit the website, you will find really a comprehensive library of the guides about cover all type of IP and some industry specific guide. All guides are free for download, so just enjoy it. China IP SME help desk is just a part of a large family of help desks. From this map, you can see all 6 help desks funded by EU, and all help desks offer the very similar services. So if you have some inquiry or question in other jurisdiction, please just log in the website, and it is very easy for you to access the regional help desk website. That's all of us. Then hope you have a chance to enjoy our free services. And if for any IP inquiries, just contact us at any time. Thank you. Now I'll give the floor to Alessio.
Thank you, Jennifer. Good morning, everybody. It's a great pleasure to be here and to introduce the results, the main content of the report. It will be just a glimpse into the report as for time reasons, but of course, everything I'm going to mention today, you will be able to find it in more detail in the report in a much more detailed way. So I invite you to read it. I'll talk mainly about 3 aspects. The first one is about preparing for the fair, but also identifying the most appropriate fair, because we will see that there are many fairs around, so choosing the right one is very important. In the core part, in the second part, which is also the core part, I will mention some of the good practices that companies could have before, during, and after the fair. And then at the end, I will mention a few examples from our experience. So trade fairs, many people, many companies ask us, are trade fairs good? Are a good opportunity for us to meet new consumers, new partners? The point, I think, is that if you don't have any resources on the ground in China, I think you don't have many other options than going to a trade fair. So going to a trade fair is recommended in this case. So however, participating in a trade fair is not cheap, of course, and often you are not able to see the benefits until very later after the fair. And the other thing is that not all trade fairs are very relevant, or at least some might be more relevant than others. And similarly, if a fair is a big one, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's better than a small one. We will see later why. This is the report I was mentioning, and again, this is the QR code for the report, but you can find it on our website, and yeah, it's free for download. So the first step is that you should make sure, you should clarify what your goals of participating in trade fairs are. Of course, this is a bit obvious, but in practice, not so much. So you could go to a trade fair to meet new clients, or to see all the clients, to maintain your client relationships, also to network, to meet other people, not necessarily for business purposes, but just for networking purposes. You can go to a trade fair to understand what are the latest technologies, the latest innovations, the latest trends of the market, who is there, so to understand the players. You can also do it for only for marketing purposes, for brand visibility and awareness. You can also actually go to a fair to sell products. If your products are already in China, you can actually sell. In many cases, you can sell products in the fair, so generate extra value. So these are a few reasons. Of course, in most cases, you have a combination of these elements. You don't have just one. But the reason I mentioned in this is because you should have very appropriate indicators to measure the impact of the fair. Because many companies go to trade fair and they have expectations which are not always realistic, or maybe are not met. So it's very important to understand clearly the goals and to set KPIs accordingly. Some trade fairs might be more suitable for setting goals rather than others. And based on this, on the goals and the KPIs, you should have a tailored strategy based on the goal. And yes, as I mentioned, they also allows you to make a better assessment of what the trade fair was used for. You should, something that again might sound a bit obvious, but I assure you that in practice doesn't always happen, at least according to what we heard from many SMEs we engage with, is to have an action plan tailored for this specific fair. An action plan means you should cover budget. What's the budget available? Do you have enough resources? Do you have the flexibility to cope with last minute changes? Who is going to participate in trade fair? Is it going to be some senior staff or just some sales representative? Do you need local resources like hostesses or local support backstopping staff? Products, do you need to ship products to China? This is very important. We will see later one example on this. You should make sure that everything is clear, because otherwise the risk is that your product will not make it for the fair. Participation, are you participating alone with your individual booth, or are you maybe part of a business delegation? Are you designing your own booth, or maybe are you working with some intermediaries? Marketing, do you plan to do any events in your booth? Do you plan to participate in some conferences during the fair? Do you plan to have some demonstrations maybe of how your product works? And then of course there's IP protection, which we will see later in the next presentation. So we mentioned there are many fairs. There are actually thousands, or hundreds, or I would say even thousands of fairs in China. Some are bigger, some are smaller, some are sectoral. I have a sector focus. Some are pretty broad in scope. So how to identify the one that is more appropriate for your goals? You should consider a few points. The nature. There are some fairs which are Chinese fairs, and then some fairs are international fairs, which have like a local, let's say, edition in China. Usually they have foreign organizers. Also the appeal. What are the exhibitors of this fair? Are mostly Chinese companies? Are these international companies? Are both? These are depending on your goals, depending on your target. You should also look into this. Also the influence. There are some fairs in China which are considered to be like very important events that you cannot skip for any reason. Maybe judging on the years of the history, the organizers, if there are central ministries, central government ministries as organizers, if there are VIPs, vice presidents, ministers. These are all factors that increase the influence and importance of fair. Also the geographical scope of the fair. Some fairs are pretty broad. They cover, let's say, all China, but there are also fairs which have very specific, very local focus. Maybe they target the region where they are, or maybe the macro region where they are, but not all the country. Something very important is and that many companies might underestimate, is to whether there are any other exhibitors from your country, or whether there is a national pavilion from your country. So this is very important. If there is such a pavilion or a strong presence from your country, this could be positive or negative depending on your goals. But many countries organize such participation. Many fairs also have official website where you can see the figures from previous editions. Of course, be a bit careful, because sometimes these figures might be a bit inflated, or they just say what they want to say, but not necessarily reflecting the reality. And very important, what are the supporting services that the organizers offer you? Do they offer some, sponsorship? If you're interested in marketing activities, do they help you with that? Do they help you to storage your products in China if you have to ship them? Do they provide help with customs clearance? Or are there any conferences taking place in the fair where you can actually contribute as a speakers? These are all important elements to consider based on what your goals are. And also timing consideration, this is very important, especially in China. A lot of things, timing is fundamental. Depending, for instance, on some developments at the political level, for instance, it could be a good opportunity or not. For instance, to make a very easy example, now if you are a Hungarian company and you go to China, you will be very, very welcome because recent development. And similarly, if you're from a country which is having certain let's say a tough period, maybe it might not be the right timing for you to go there. This is very important. And then of course you should talk to as many people as you can, your embassy, to us, because we have experience with many fairs in China, to see what our opinions are. Last point is that everything I mentioned here, they're all subjective. They depend on what your goals are. They don't apply like for everybody in the same way. It depends what your goals are. As for the second part, some good practices, again, these are just a few examples. In the report, we have many more. And of course, there could also be others that are not in the report, but to provide a few examples, all stages of the fair, before, during, and after, there are different things that you can do. Before, of course, you need to be very prepared and go to the fair very prepared, so that you could maximize your visibility and benefits. Reach out to potential customers, existing customers, tell them that you're going to participate in this fair and that you're very interested in meeting with them. You should, very important, you should learn recent developments in terms of regulation in China. You should understand what the market access requirements are. I have an example later to show how important is this, because if you don't know these requirements, maybe you go to the fair and it's going to be a completely waste of resources because nobody will talk to you. Then, of course, you should prepare ideally some content in Chinese, some leaflets, some website, social media that you can handle out to the you can give out to the during the fair. Do you need depending on what the requirements are for your booth, but you should maybe probably we have some design considerations, how you design your booth, what the elements are, what type of equipment do you need in your booth. Many fairs also offer some advertising, some sponsorship options. If you are interested in that, you should plan it in advance, because such opportunities may be limited, and also you want to have a good message to say, to be advertised. So also very important, I think, if possible, especially if you have foreign people attending in your booth, I always recommend to familiarize with the Chinese business etiquette, which is pretty different from the business etiquette we are used to in Europe. As a foreigner, there is tolerance for you if you make some mistakes not in line with the business etiquette of China, but if you know the business etiquette of China, that would be very appreciated. So how to communicate, how to handle business cards, or maybe if you go to dinner, how to handle dinner. And then as a rule of thumb, if you have senior staff, it's always preferred, but of course this depends on your own resources. There's one example. If you need to ship product samples to show to people, these logistics requirements might not necessarily be that straightforward. Depending on the product, there might be different steps involved. Something could go wrong, especially if it's a product that normally would require certification, or maybe if it's a high risk food product such as meat. The risk is that your product, and this happens very frequently, the product is stuck at the customs, it's not cleared, and maybe you need to contact your embassy, or maybe hire a professional broker to solve the situation, but maybe when you solve the situation, it's too late because the fair has finished. So a good way is also to ask the organizers. Usually they will be able to issue letters that could support the customs clearance. This is a very important aspect which you should not underestimate. So once you are prepared the fair begins. You should, of course, always be your company should be represented professionally. You should train your staff. Don't leave your booth unattended. Also take every visitor seriously because you never know who you're dealing with. Of course, you should be aware that many will be a waste of time, especially if it's a consumer goods fair. Maybe there will be many curious people going there just to taste your product for free. But be aware of this. But in any case, treat everybody seriously because you never know in China who does what. So that's my recommendation. Ask visitors to follow social media accounts, especially maybe if you have a gift. Maybe if you ask them to follow your WeChat account, they scan on the spot, and then if they do so, you give them a gift, something like that. This is a very good approach, something very common. You should do so. If possible, you should organize events because this will attract a lot of attention, including from journalists or people with their phones that will publish on their social media accounts, and then maybe without you knowing, you have free advertisement on Chinese social media. These kind of events are very important. If you are a food and beverage company, do some cooking classes, or if you have a new product, maybe organize a product launch, or maybe some demonstration of how your technology works. These are extremely important. Probably this would be the first thing I would consider. Of course, visit other booths, try to understand what are, as we mentioned, the trends. If possible, try to meet the organizers in person and give them a gift because they might open some doors for you. Maybe you never know, or maybe if you plan to participate again in next year, they might offer a better package, maybe a discount. We have this example here. Yeah, as I was mentioning before, if you have some small gifts, these are usually very effective in raising curiosity from participants to attract crowds to your booth. And the more people are at the booth, the more people will come because people like to go where there are many people, especially in China, and they take videos. So if you have gifts, that would be ideal. Especially, you can also think strategies about, divide the gift into two parts. One, to unlock the gift, they should do something before the fair, and then maybe something else during the fair. You can also think strategies like this, or maybe if they follow your social media account, you give a gift, or maybe you give a bigger gift or something like that. This works very well in China. And then last point about what you can do after, of course, I would say that the real challenges begin only at this stage. Follow up, obviously, with all your leads. My suggestion is that when you collect business cards, sometimes you might be collecting hundreds of business cards. So my suggestion is to write down maybe some notes on the business card to remember who you are, because probably you might not always remember who the person of the business card was. And the same goes for you, by the way. And probably other people will not necessarily remember you. Always, of course, be polite and professional, and then do a lot of social media activity, communicate how successful the fair was, even if maybe it was not that successful, but of course always successful. Show pictures, and the most important thing that you can and should do is to treasure the feedback that you have received when you talk to people at the fair, or maybe what you learn from other companies, from other exhibitors. Adjust your strategy. Maybe you might consider improving the design of your product, or maybe the packaging, or maybe the message that you use in the communication. Adjust your market entry strategy. Maybe you learn that a certain sales channel doesn't work very well, or maybe not as well as other sales channels. So maybe you might want to shift your resources to other sales channels. Yeah, enhance your communication, prepare interesting content with graphics, with visuals, and this is the most important thing that you should do. So learn from your experience and improve for the adjust your strategy. Last point. Oh yes, of course, if you have, as I mentioned, these are just some examples. There can be many others, and if you have if you are willing to share your experience or maybe a comment, please, we'll be very happy if you could write it in the chat of this webinar, and maybe we can also comment on it later during the Q&A session. Last part of my presentation, just to give you a few examples. First of all, sometimes there is public funding available from the European Union to allow you to participate in a trade fair. And this is especially for agri-food. If you have a food and beverage product, there is the European Commission's Research Executive Agency, REA, which has some funding for agri-food campaigns. Actually, there was one campaign last month in China, in Shanghai and Shenzhen. So go there. Actually, as EU SME Centre, we are also planning a mission and participate to a trade fair in China in September this year. You will know more details soon, but if you are in green tech, clean technology, you are very welcome to join us for this mission. Of course, IP Help Desk also supports some trade fairs. Usually they're on the ground to support SMEs there, European SMEs, and so on. There are many projects that might offer some support. And the same goes for the member state level. Many member states, trade promotion organizations, I would say especially the member states, offer some incentives, some funding, or maybe they can negotiate a better deal with the trade fair organizers so that they can reduce the cost. This is very, very common. So learn about these opportunities and try to take advantage of them. My last slide here is to give you a few examples of everything, of what it means in practice, what I mentioned before. So I mentioned one of the very important points I mentioned is to understand before you go to the trade fairs, what are the market entry requirements for your product in China. This is extremely important because it could be that you cannot export that product via certain channels, or maybe you should do a lot of things in order to be allowed to export a product, which might not make it very worth. So there was this example of in this case, it was a Polish dairy company, but for food products, you should register them in advance to a certain platform in China. So this company hadn't started this registration. The result is that when they went to the fair, all the potential Chinese importers they talked with, nobody would talk to them seriously, would seriously consider the company because they hadn't started this registration. This registration might take several months. So the feedback that this company received was, okay, you first complete the registration and then we talk again. So for them, they didn't really get any good lead. Or there was this honey producer from the Netherlands. They went to a fair, but they realized that Netherlands doesn't have a government agreement to export honey to China. So basically, this company was there, but it was completely useless because they cannot export honey to China via most of the channels. There are some workarounds, but still. Or maybe there was this pet food company that had the pet food. There was the product formula had a 3% of a type of meat. Then the company realized that its own country didn't have a government agreement to export that kind of meat to China. So basically, if the company wanted to export a product to China, they had to change the formula. They had to replace that 3% of that meat with something else. Or maybe there was changing field. There was software. In this case, was actually gaming. This company was participating to matchmaking, which we actually organized 2 years ago. We organized as EU SME Centre, and they realized that there are very strict regulations in China in terms of the content of an app or of an online game, and this company didn't know. They had a pretty, let's say, a war kind of game, and in China these games are very difficult to have. You should change a lot of features, and at the end the company this would have implied a lot of efforts and costs for the company to change these features. So had they known in advance, they would have joined the matchmaking. Last point, we mentioned these logistics considerations. You can send samples to China for participating to a trade fair, but there are some procedures to follow. You should apply in advance. You should probably have a letter from the trade organizers that exempt you. That, let's say, they give you the permission to import this, so that you send this letter to the Chinese customs and you get your product cleared. If you don't do this, or if there is an issue with the documentation, or maybe if you don't write samples in the right way, maybe there could be issues at the customs, which could result in a delay. Maybe the product is cleared, but too late. Maybe it arrives only the last day of the fair. And this has happened actually with a company we had. It was a machine, a set of machine. It arrived on the last day of the fair, where actually the last day of the fairs usually are less busy. I mean, people most of the visitors will go on the first or the second day, not on the last. It could also be that the product is not delayed, is not cleared, and must be destroyed, and or returned if you want. The point is that some products might require certain storage conditions in terms of temperature, humidity. You should also make sure that these requirements are met. So the best way is to talk with the trade fair organizers and get their support in this, because they're able to support. Again, these are just some examples. There are many more. There are also many more examples in the report, which I invite you to read. So yes, this was short presentation from my side. Maybe I took a bit longer, but if there are any questions or comments, you're very welcome to write in the chat. Thank you. And now I guess give the floor to Ms. Lisa Lu from the business part of the China IP SME Help Desk.
Thank you. Thank you, Alessio, and thank you for the informative presentation. And it's my pleasure to introduce the IP protection part of our report. So first, I will introduce the importance of IP and why IP should be the consideration when European companies come to attend the trade fair in China. Then what's the major IP principles you should be aware of when coming to China, and also some common issues faced by the European SMEs when they attend the trade fairs. And I will also introduce the good practice before, during, and after attending the trade fairs. And there will be a case study sharing about a successful Spanish SMEs attending the trade fair in China and without any risk or without any loss of their IP. So why IP should be the key considerations when European companies attend the trade fair in China? First, IP can provide the exclusive rights. That means if you have IP protected in China, you are the only one who can use to sell, to produce your products with your IP. Nobody else can do that without your consent. And because nowadays the IP is more important in China, and if you are doing business in China, you can realize the Chinese companies value IP more. They would love to invest more to the companies who owns IPs. So IP can attract more partners and investors in China. And also IP can help you to monetize products and ideas. Like if you license your patent to another companies in China, you can earn royalties by doing that. And if you have IP protected in China, and in the case of infringement such as copycats and counterfeiting, you can take actions against them. Without IP in China, those actions will not be available. And IP can also help you to prevent other people to register your IP in China, that it's bad faith IP registration. It's very common issues encountered by European companies. Before they come to the China market, they realize their IP, especially trademarks, already be stolen. And if you have IP ready before you come to China, then this issue will not happen. And another important thing to know about IP in China is the major principle. First is registration. For patent and trademarks, without registration, you will not be able to enjoy the full protection in China. If you found out counterfeit or copycats, you will not be able to enforce your right. Second is IP's territorial rights. That means if you have European IP, European patent or European trademarks, it doesn't mean you have protection in China. You still need to go through a separate procedures to obtain the protection in China. And the last principle is first to file. That means whoever is the first to file trademark or patent in China, and their rights will be granted. And even though for bad faith registration, it's still possible for them to get the rights before the real rights owner. Most of the times, European companies, it's possible to overcome those bad faith registration, but it will take a lot of time to do it. And what are the common issues faced by the European companies when they attend trade fairs in China? First is bad faith registration. So for a lot of European companies, before coming to the trade fair, they didn't register their trademark or patent in China. And after the trade fairs, a few months later, they want to register the trademarks and come to the China market officially. And then they realize their trademarks already be stolen by some other company, Chinese companies, and probably they are the participants during the trade fairs who actually talk with the European company. And it's possible to fight against this bad faith registration, but it will cost you a lot of money and also a lot of time. It takes a long time for you to get your trademarks back in China. And another issue is the IP infringement during the trade fair. I met one of these companies who already applied for patent in China, but the patent is pending. So they do not have the registration or full protection in China. And they attend the trade fair with this pending patent. And during this trade fair, they spotted a Chinese company sold an identical technology during that trade fairs. And also this Chinese company applied for another patent already in China. Even though the patent status of two parties, two companies are not certain yet, but this infringement already happened and the European company already faced some loss that this Chinese company is stealing some of this market share from them. And another issue is the loss of novelty of patent. So in Chinese, based on the China patent law, if you want to patent your new technology, you have to make sure this new technology is not public in China or anywhere else around the world. So if you already showcase your new technology in China, it's possible that you will not be able to patent it in China anymore. One thing to be noted is that you can still file your patent application within 6 months. That's the trade fair's priority. But is 6 months enough for you to prepare the patent application and translate all the documents into Chinese? Probably it's not. Therefore, make sure and carefully select what technologies you want to showcase in the trade fair. And the last common issue is about trade secrets. So if the European company does not prepare the non-disclosure agreement and does not push to side with the potential client during the trade fair, and there exists a certain risk that during the conversation and negotiation, the European company may talk about some technologies which is not public or patented in China yet, that will cause the loss of trade secrets. So we will recommend you to check if you already have the NDA ready, and if you already train your staff how to negotiate, how to talk with the potential clients during the trade fairs. And again, the best solution is always registering and securing your IP rights before you come to the trade fair in China. And as the first part of the good practice, how to prepare to attend the trade fairs in China, first, you have to conduct an IP audit. That means you need to understand which IP assets you have. And if you already get it ready for coming to China, you can use our IP diagnostic tool. Simply just scan this QR code. You will visit our website to use this tool, which combined with 20 questions. And after answering those questions, we will tell you which IP assets you have and how to protect it. Basically, in China, to protect your logo, brand, you can use trademark. Protect innovation, industrial design, you can consider patent. And copyright can protect your logo, packaging, banner, brochure, and software. For those on public business information, take measures to protect it as trade secrets. You can't register trade secrets in China. And if you are food and beverage companies, maybe geography indications will be highly relevant to you. And make sure you have domain names registered in China before coming. And after the audits, register your IP in China, including trademarks, patent, and copyright. And as I already mentioned, the patent, if you showcase your new technology, it's possible that you will not be patent that technology in the future. So be aware what technology you are going to display during the trade fair, and prepare NDA to protect your secrets, trade secrets. And also prepare the documents in case of the IP infringement, including the certificate of IP rights ownership. If you have the international trademark, you have to be careful because these international trademark certificates, it's not in Chinese automatically. So make sure you apply for Chinese trademark certificates with the China Trademark Office. That has to be done by an IP agency in China. Second is the business license with the translation in Chinese. And if you already have an IP lawyer, get the power of attorney ready for any possible infringement. And for the business license and power of attorney, if you want to file a complaint with the IP Complaint Center, which I will explain later, you will have to check with the trade fairs. Do they require the notarized and legalized documents? If so, you have to at least prepare for 2 weeks before the trade fairs. Check with the trade fair first. And also you need to know more about the trade fair, including reading the exhibitor contracts to make sure is there any measure in place if infringement such as counterfeiting are identified, and is there any IP complaint center at the trade fairs based on the Chinese law. Any trade fairs longer than 3 days, including 3 days, has to equipped with this IP complaint center. Also research the exhibitor. If you realize some suspicious exhibitor, try to visit them on site. And if you need any support of background search because of the language problem, and you can always contact us or EU SME Centre to do that for you, to make sure you understand more about this Chinese exhibitor. And during the trade fairs, what you can do to make sure you know your rights and options. So first, you can visit the booths on site. Usually first day is the setup phase. So after the morning time of setup, you can walk around the trade fairs and to see if there's any suspicious exhibitor, besides understand the business trend of the China market. And if you identify any suspicious companies, and you can try to collect the evidence, which I will explain later. And if you already have IP register in China, properly use that IP. For example, mark your products with your patent number and with this register R logo for your register trademarks. And if you have copyright, use the copyright symbols. And if you identify the suspicious company, you have to do the evidence collection, which will be very helpful for later on. So which is the useful evidence, including photos, brochures, business cards. Basically, you collect as many materials as you can. And if you already hire a public notarial, you can ask them to do the notarization purchase and website notarization for online evidence. Those will also be very helpful after the trade fair if you want to protect your rights. And for those infringement on site, you can consider to submit with the IP Complaint Center. And before doing that, you should familiar yourself with this IP office. So visit the office, talk with them to make sure they know your brand, and make sure you know the procedures, how they solve this infringement case. And if you actually identify the infringement and you do not need to conduct further investigation, or this suspicious company is a past infringer, then go ahead and file the complaint with the trade fair. However, it's not always the best option. And there are many actions you can do after the trade fair. And we always recommend you to consulting with the IP experts when you identify the infringement. I will introduce how to file a complaint at the trade fair in China. First, you submit the application with the evidence like the photos you already took and the IP certificates you had with you. Then discuss the case, and the IP officer will examine your case. If they need any other documents, they will let you know. And later on, they will exchange your case to the other party. And if the other party has any arguments to make, then they are allowed to do that. However, time is very valuable in this case, because most of the trade fairs last for 3 days or less than that. If you identify the infringer or the infringer on the very end of the trade fair, it's possible that the IP office will not make a decision within time limit. So if you identify the suspicious infringement, report it immediately if it's necessary. And if the infringement is confirmed, the organizer and IP officer will remove or cover the infringed products. And I already mentioned that if you identify infringement during the trade fair, in some situation that it's not a best option to comply with the IP officer on site. For example, if your IPs in China are not ready yet, then complaining with the IP officer there it will not contribute too much for your case. And also, if the IP complaint center does not have any qualified expert to make a decision during the trade fairs, then it doesn't make sense to comply with them either. So after the trade fairs, it's important to keep investigation and monitoring the infringement. And one important step is to do the preservation of evidence, like the notarization, and also use the blockchain to preserve those online evidence, because it will be very important for you to move to the next steps. What is the next steps? There are many options for you to choose. You can simply send a notification letter to the other party, or you can hire a lawyer to send a cease and desist letter to them. And as the last resort, litigation is also an option, but litigation, infringement litigation takes a long time, and you will have to spend a lot of money to do that. And I would like to share a successful case study to explain more how to attend a trade fair with your unregistered invention. And this is a Spanish company. They produce agricultural and farming equipment such as tractor, and they plan to attend the trade fair in Beijing. And what new technologies do they have? They have this new model of tractor, and with new design and new function that allows to lower fuel consumption, because their core technology is this engine. However, with this engine, they did not patent it in China yet. So they are considering, should they bring their new technology to China and attract more business opportunity, or should they wait after they patent their new technology in China and come to China later? But that will mean they lose the good business opportunity. And what they do eventually is they decide not to bring the engine to China. But for the rest part of this tractor, they still bring it to China. And before coming, they do an internal legal training for the staff to make sure they understand how to negotiate, how to promote the advantage of the new engine without leaking any details of the technology. That's how you protect the trade secrets. And also they do the notarization of how they showcase their tractors at the trade fair. And for the other IP, they also take comprehensive measures, like for their logo and trade name, they use trademarks to protect it. And for the products catalog, they register copyrights. And for the design of the tractor, they register design in China. So as an outcome, they showcase the tractor without loss of the novelty of the engine. And later on, they obtained an invention patent for the engine. So it's a very successful case to how to protect your IP while attending trade fair in China. From this case, we can learn that it's not recommended to participate in a trade fair without protection of your IP right in China, and use IP registration to protect your IP and also take measures to protect your trade secrets. And if you only explain the advantages of the new technology, that doesn't mean you lose the novelty of your technology for the patent registration, as long as the technical solution details are not exposed. And prepare early and decide a comprehensive IP strategy. And lastly, I put some important takeaway messages. First, IP is your asset. Update IP protection before attending trade fairs to avoid loss of rights, and conduct an IP audit. Decide an IP strategy for trademark and patent. Without registration, you don't have any protection in China. And if you want to know more details about how to register your IP in China, please contact us and we will explain more details to you. And also pay attention to the unregistered IP and trade secrets during the trade fairs. And you have to know where is the IP complaint center is and how to file a complaint with them. And the evidence collection is really important in China. And consider taking enforcement actions after the trade fair. For any questions, you can always contact us, and you can find us in different channels, and it will be appreciated that you can let us know any feedback of today's webinars and what contents you would love to know in the future. I will be here for the Q&A session, and I will leave the floor back to Jennifer.
Thank you for Lisa and also Alessio for the very informative presentation. Now we still have a few minutes to ask the question to Alessio or Lisa about business access in China or the IP right protection in China. We already received a question, as this is for Lisa. Can you remind us, please, on territorial issues for patents, trademarks, and registered design in China? Do they all need to be filed and are filed not only in mainland China, but also in Hong Kong, Macau, etc., for protection throughout China? Thank you. Lisa, please.
Okay, thank you for this question. It's a very good question and common question I got asked. The short answer is, even you have IP in mainland China, you do not have the IP protection in Hong Kong, Macau, or Taiwan. You still need to apply different IP protection in Hong Kong, Macau, and Taiwan, because those are 4 different jurisdictions. The protections are not the same. It doesn't apply to each other. However, if you have the patent registered in China, you can extend it to Hong Kong and Macau easily, not Taiwan. But if you have patent in Hong Kong, Taiwan, or Macau, it cannot be extended to China. Hope it's helpful.
So you mean you suggested to register or filed in China mainland first, and then easy to expand to other regions?
Depending on the market plan, of course, it's easier to register in mainland China than extend it to Hong Kong and Macau. Yeah, but if China is not the first market plan, then of course going to Hong Kong and Macau first.
Okay, thank you. Okay, are there any questions about the trade fair report or the IPR question? That's Alessio and Lisa, could they help? If not, then this also please keep contact with the EU SME Centre and China IPR Help Desk. We are always available to support you access the business in China or the IP issue in China. Thank you.
I would like to briefly take the chance to extend a very heartfelt thank you to all of the participants here today, to the speakers, and broadly, I would like to remind all of you that for any questions, any issues you might have regarding the Chinese market, please do not hesitate to reach out to either EU SME Centre or the China IP SME Help Desk. We would be glad to receive your feedback concerning this activity today. So please make sure to fill out the survey you will be receiving at the end of this call. And I would like once again to thank you all for joining us today. It has been a pleasure, and I hope we will have the chance to have you as participants in our future activities.